I want to go back to the phone lines. We'll talk next to Jason in Fremont, Ohio. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Hank. My question is, I have a son who is, I guess the word would be agnostic, believes in a creator, but not necessarily the God that we believe in. Is that correct?
Well, an agnostic is someone who says they simply don't know. In some cases, they would say you can't know. And we as Christians are saying something completely different. We're saying absolutely we can know that there is a God for two reasons. One is when we look at the universe that God has created, we see that God's imprimatur is on that universe. In fact, the universe itself is an effect that demands a cause equal to or greater than itself. So the uncaused first cause of the universe is God. God has also written a knowledge of himself on the tablet of our heart. And therefore, as Jesus said to Nicodemus, the problem is not that there's not enough light, the light of creation, the light of conscience. The problem is men love darkness rather than light because their deeds are evil.
Okay. And well, to further expand, I guess through my discussions with him, there's something I heard on the program a while back. You were talking about the atheist, and I guess the argument was they were talking. You basically said that a chemical reaction is what in the brain is what drives human beings. If you believe the atheistic thoughts, is that correct?
Well, yes. Basically, what I was doing, I think if I'm recalling what you're referring to, is I was talking about a guy named Alex Rosenberg who wrote a book called The Atheist Guide to Reality. And in that book, he's pointing out that everything is a function of brain chemistry and genetics. In other words, there's no such thing as mind. There's only such thing as material functions, chemical reactions. Physics can explain everything. And so he abides by what he calls scientism.
Okay. I guess your point was that can't be true because what is the reasoning?
Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. First of all, I think it's really important to point materialists towards the reality of libertarian freedom. If human beings are merely material, then freedom of the will would not exist. Instead, we're fatalistically determined. And the implications of that kind of a worldview are not merely academic, because in a culture that embraces fatalistic determinism, you can't be held accountable for your actions since, of course, reward and punishment only make sense if we have freedom to act or to act otherwise. So you look at the Newtown shooting. You cannot really punish someone for that kind of a crime, even if he hadn't died or killed himself. You could not punish the shooter for this kind of a crime. Why? Because it's just a function of brain chemistry and genetics, and there is no such thing as right or wrong. So again, the implications are dramatic. Not only that, but the very concept of love is then rendered meaningless. Rather than being an act of the will, love is relegated to a robotic procedure fatalistically determined by physical processes. So there are a lot of arguments that we can make. For example, we can prove that the mind is not identical to the brain. We can demonstrate that the mind and brain have different properties. The brain is physical. It has extension in space. It's publicly accessible and objective. But mental states are non-physical. They don't have extension in space. They're private and subjective. So we can use arguments from libertarian freedom, from legalities, from logic to demonstrate that the whole notion that physics can explain everything is just wrong-headed thinking. And again, the implications are just dramatic because in that kind of a worldview, there is no right or wrong. In fact, this is something that you have to say Alex Rosenberg bites the bullet on. A lot of atheists don't want to bite the bullet at this point, but he does. He clearly says, what is the difference between right and wrong, good and bad? Well, the answer to that question, he tells his students at Duke, there is no moral difference between them.
So basically, you'd be safe to agree with the fact that under their belief, society really could not even exist because there would be no rules or regulations. We would just be a society of people doing whatever they wanted at any time. And basically, that's what you're seeing the same as I am.
Yeah, exactly. He says, what is the nature of reality? What physics says it is. What is the purpose of the universe? None. What is the meaning of life? None. Why am I here? Dumb luck. Is there free will? Not a chance. What happens when we die? Everything goes pretty much on as before, except we don't exist. What is the difference between right and wrong? Well, he says there is no moral difference. Why should I be moral? Well, it might make you feel better than being immoral. What is love? How can I find it? Well, in his view, don't look for it. It'll find you when you need it. Yeah, I mean, it's a worldview that simply can't work. Society can't work based on this because, first of all, it's fictional. He is a wretched flatlander, as I mentioned earlier, retreating into a fundamentalistic paradigm.